Welcome back to another episode of First Light. Today I'm thrilled to have with us Bill Murphey, an individual whose life is a testament to resilience and transformation. Over the past 25 years, he has become a top producer in the mortgage industry, closing over $1.5 billion in loans. On top of that, Bill has completed 5 Boston marathons, one of them on crutches, finished an ultra marathon as well as an Ironman. His story exemplifies how adversity can lead to high performance when approached with the right mindset. In today's conversation, we'll dive into how Bill built his life, the lessons he learned, and the practical strategies for thriving even when life throws you a storm. Let's get started. Welcome to the show, Bill. Bill, I want to thank you so much for joining me on First Light today. I was super excited to have you as a guest, knowing all the amazing things you have done. So I want to start off by giving you a chance to let you introduce yourself to my audience and tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate being here. Currently in the mortgage business, real estate investor, and an adventure enthusiast. Do some endurance stuff that I know you can relate to over on your side. And authored a book, Driving in the Storm: 9 Principles, dealing with adversity. That came out and kind of told the story through my own struggles, where just kind of feeling like an average person in all walks of life, and just the secrets to success when you don't feel like you're gifted or super talented, and what that makeup looks like.
Well, and take us through that. So I know you talk about thriving instead of surviving. So tell us what that means to you.
Yeah, I think there's even a level below surviving. That's the victim. When stuff happened to when things happen to us, oftentimes, where we have the built-in excuse, the excuse not to show up for ourselves, for others, to not do the things we want to do, not do the things that we should be doing, because we're in that, I call it victim mentality. And, what that looks like is, you don't get out of bed, you don't go to work, or you're on cruise control, and you may be dealing with depression and angst and anger and vengeance and hostility and incredible sadness, despair. And it's important that when we have these events in our lives, these adverse events in our lives that hit us, that we do start to move, that we do get out of bed, that we do things. Because when we're dealing with those feelings, those emotions of the sadness and the anger and the hostility, or whatever it may be, those emotions, you can feel it in the pit of your stomach, and those keep you down. Those keep you down and out, so you can't move. So it's really important to get to, not just a survival mode where you're just getting by, but also get to the thriving mindset, where now your feelings are bliss, happiness, love, enthusiasm, zest for life. And how do you do that? I think you need to count blessings. When things happen to us, we start, we may start blaming. You may start, the woe is me. That's the victim. That's the victim mentality. And so, what are we grateful for? When I go dark, I get thankful for my family. I get thankful for my kids. I get thankful for my career. I get thankful for the opportunities that I have to make an impact on others. And so that does help give purpose. So you can do things to get from that victim mindset real quick and move through the process of thriving again. The longer you stay down and out, the harder it's going to be to bounce back.
Yeah, one thing that on my journey that was so important was journaling. And one thing I would journal about every day was gratitude. I'd always write down the 3 things that I was grateful for. So I think that's such amazing advice. Can you talk to us though about the kind of the turning point for you when you decided not just to survive but to thrive?
Yeah, I've always been pretty lucky, where I came from a pretty toxic environment. And, there's a test that I took. It's called the ACE test, an adverse childhood experience test. And when I took this test, I remember the psychologist said statistically you should be dead or in jail based on what I scored. And what was happening was, he said, people that score like you do are, they're into they're violent, they're into gangs, they're into porn addiction, they're into gambling, they're into, um, you know, uh, oh, uh, obsessive compulsive eating, whatever. So there's a lot of things there. But what I did was I became a workaholic, and that did have its price to pay, because I felt like, if I was engaged in work, that was good, but I would block everything out. So I used work as an escape from when I discovered that I was depressed. And then I would also get involved in extremes, like extreme sports, and just kind of lose myself in a lot of those activities, so I could cope, and I didn't know I was coping.
Yeah, for me, I had this aha moment realization in business coaching through this level 10 exercise about your mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, financial well-being, and realized that I was lacking a lot of those characters, a lot of those aspects. And much like you, was kind of doing it all, through work and working hard, but also alcohol. But did you have that moment, that turning point where it's like, wow, this aha moment of, hey, I'm going to do things different?
Yeah, I did. I went through counseling. I went through an intensive program back in 2019 when I realized that, I was burying depression my whole life and never admitted it. Being in central Massachusetts, it was like, at least in our area with our crew, it's like if you said you were sad, you were down, you'd be labeled. You'd be labeled as weak, as soft, and then you'd be in a fight, and you'd be brawling, and that's really how it went down. So no one ever really talked about their feelings. So we were taught at an early age, or we learned at an early age to stuff those feelings. A lot of people have done that, and it's just, how does it come out later? I never realized it. I always said I was anxious, and I was high strung. When I lash out, in anger or yelling, it was because I was high strung. But it wasn't that I was just lashing out because the suppressed feelings just boiled over and blew up. So it was actually during an endurance event. It was, I was running Boston Marathon, decided to do an Ironman that year. And while I was doing a lot of training, that's when I would do my journaling, because my best ideas would come to me. And there was a book I know I'm a little geeky, but I listened to books on my long runs or my long workouts, and or podcasts, and I don't listen to music. And I listened to this book. It was called 30 Years Prior, I Don't Want to Talk About It, by Terry Real. It was about men's depression. And it was a huge aha moment where I said to myself, oh my God, I've been depressed my whole life and have never, ever once used the D word. And it was in that moment that I realized that, I need to address this, because it was leading to, an attitude problem. It was like, I thought if I provided, the world owed me. If I did something, people needed to, pay me back. But it was real bad thinking. And once I discovered and went through the process, I'm a lot, kinder, gentler. I try to give back as much as I can. I find meaning and purpose in all of that. And I do that to model for my kids. I want them to see how important it is to make a difference in someone's life. And, I've done some talks for some, high school and college kids. And I talk about the importance of giving back. And the first thing they always say, or They want to shoot a look at you like, well, I have no money. That's easy for you to say. And it doesn't have to start there. It starts with kindness, energy, and time. That's all you need to give back and make a difference to lift somebody up. And that's what we try to do with some of the kids that we work with.
Yeah, I didn't understand that for so long. For me, giving back was just writing a check. It wasn't actually showing up and serving. And when I realized the importance of actually showing up and giving your time and the impact that that has on you and others, sometimes that goes a lot further than the money. And so that's such an important principle. One thing I couldn't wait to talk to you about is those endurance sports, those ultra marathons, the the Ironmans, because obviously, as you know, I did a half Ironman, currently training for a full Ironman. I've ran the marathon, and I want to talk to you and ask you, what kind of drives you in those huge endurance sports? What it drives your physical limits there? Because it's just such an amazing feat now, having participated in those. I didn't truly understand or appreciate what goes into those kind of events. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, for me, it's pushing limits, right? And if we have a competitive spirit, that's something else. I'm very competitive in my work environment, and I look at the scoreboard all the time and make sure that I'm trying to do my best to get as high as on scoreboard as I possibly can, and I'm competing with myself. But when it comes to the endurance stuff, it's I don't look at the scoreboard because I'm not breaking any world records. I'm not a world-class athlete, but what I do is I'm pushing my own limits. When I ran my first marathon, I never thought that even an Ironman was possible. I was like, that those are freaks of nature that are able to do that. That's surreal. Like, they must be born or blessed with some genes, And then, so the reason that I continue to do some of these things is because I want to keep pushing through the barriers, partly, mostly for myself, but partly to show that anyone can do it. Now, when I say anyone can do this, a lot of people say, I could never run that marathon. I could never do that half marathon. That's, I'd barely do a 5K, or I could never do an Ironman. And so I've learned that they could if they really wanted to. So what I ask now is, you may be inspired and even motivated by somebody, conquering a feat like that, but is it important enough to you? And a lot of times they say, no, I don't even like to drive that far. And so that's okay. They're not going to have enough meaning. So if those folks start out and their meaning, their purpose, and their why is not strong enough because they're inspired and motivated, they'll never do it. So you got to check yourself right away and say, does this mean enough to me for me to be committed? Commitment is the most important. Can I be committed throughout the process to finish this through? And I think it would save a lot of heartache on people having regret if they would ask themselves, you know what? Maybe I'll take a pickleball instead, because that sounds a little more of my speed. That sounds a little more of my fun, like up my alley, a little bit more fun, a little bit more social for me. Hey, that's fine. Go take a pickleball and do that, because if it doesn't mean enough for you to do something endurance wise, then you're not going to do it.
Absolutely. One thing I wanted to talk to you about too is to do these high endurance events. I mean, the discipline that it takes. I know the amount of training that goes into a full Ironman, the days per week that you're spending on the bike or in the pool or out on a run. And then you also have to balance a career. I know you were, a top mortgage producer. I know you've written books, you've done all this stuff, you have kids. So talk about how you kind of balance the demands of being an endurance athlete, being an author, being a father, being a business owner, being this top producer.
Yeah. So the first thing that I learned is never commit. So if we go through the process here, right? If we go through the process and say, you know what, it does mean enough to me. This is important enough for me to do this. I'm going to do this. And you wake up one morning and you start training, and you haven't told your spouse, and you haven't told your kids, and you haven't told work, and you haven't told anybody that you're going to do this. Well, your life will come crashing down pretty quickly when everybody realizes that, you're not around most weekends. You can't socialize, on Friday, Saturday night, because you're committed to this thing, and things will change for you real quickly. So what's really important in this process, because it does take, for me, when I'm peaking in these things, it's 25, 30 hours, or even like some of the highly skilled pros, they're putting in 20, 25 hours easily. So what I think is important is ask for permission on those that, on your sacrifices that are going to impact others around you. So, hey, listen, honey. Hey, listen, kids. Hey, listen, coworker. I want to commit to this. Can I have buy-in from you? Will you support me in what I really want to do? Because this means so much. This has so much importance to me. I want to conquer this goal. Can you support me and help me get there? And you got to get the buy-in there. And then the next thing I think is very important is declaring it. And now there's a couple of schools of thoughts, like keep everything to yourself, because if you're Phil, no one will know. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly. If you declare it, then you have built-in accountability partners. Yes, the naysayers will try to chop you down at the knees. Forget them, block them, don't listen to them, tune them out. Let the people that are inspired by you lift you up, because there are enough of those. So the naysayers will knock you down, block them out. But if you declare it and say, I don't care if you put it on your socials, if you tell your closest, nearest, and dearest friends and family, hey, I want to do this, they'll be like, that's great. I applaud you. How can I help? What can we do? Most people will be in that camp. And even the ones that do doubt you, and they're your friends or your family, they may not mean ill will, but it can bring you down. My mom is my biggest fan, but, I've probably done, 20 something marathons and Ironmans combined and ultra races and all this other stuff. She still thinks I'm going to get hurt every single time I even go out for a long run. Like, it's kind of funny, Billy, you're going to get hurt, and it's cute and funny, but like, I have to redirect her, like, Mom, I'm in my 50s, like, ailments are going to come. Don't worry about it. Don't lose sleep, because, I'm out there on a long run. So, get the buy-in from everybody, and I would, hit that declare and start to get everybody on board.
Yeah. Talking about getting injured, I know you ran a Boston Marathon on crutches. So talk to us about, perseverance and persevering through a marathon on crutches.
Yeah, there was a Boston Marathon that was 2020, 21 during COVID. And I was 60 days out, and I was walking down my stairs going for a run outside. It was dark, and I missed the 2 bottom stairs, and I jammed my leg into the floor that I expected to be a step. So when you miss that, it's almost like you've fallen forever. I immediately dropped down to the floor, and I was in excruciating pain. And I was like, I think I broke my leg. And then I touched my thigh, and I thought my bone was protruding, because it was squishy. So it was I tore my quad tendon, rolled all the way up to my hip. I had surgery the next day. 60 days later, we ran the Boston Marathon on crutches. And how that process unfolded was, when I realized what had happened, I was like, oh man, I don't think they're going to let me do this. I got to figure out a way. I thought maybe I could limp it. Maybe I'd be some type of walker. Maybe I could do whatever. And Boston Athletic Association said, no, it's a liability. But during COVID, and it was October, normally the Boston Marathons are in April, during a Massachusetts holiday, Patriots Day, they allowed you could do a virtual marathon. So I was like, okay, so we talk about victim, right? I had 5 minutes of my victim, we'll call it 24 hours of my victim mindset or victim feelings. I was down. I was depressed. Why me? Why this happened? I want to do this marathon. I'm raising money for Make-A-Wish. I'm doing all these things. And so I was like, I need to break out of this funk. And then I get some well wishes, emails, I believe the next day after surgery, and be like, Bill, sorry, I can't do the marathon. Make-A-Wish sent something. Boston Athletic Association sent something. And so I was like, wait a second, no, we got to figure out a way to do this. And I actually started, working through this and working with some folks, and we figured out we could do the Boston Marathon on crutches virtually. And so I didn't know how I was going to do it. And then I remember I went down to my pool, shortly after surgery, and I started crutching around the pool. And it took me, I was in so much pain. The blisters started pretty immediately. The pain started, and my hands were blistered. I had my underarms were all chafed. It was just nasty, and I was doing 1 mile per hour when I did my first hour workout on crutches. But my meaning, now we talk about victim mindset, right? My meaning was immediately shifted. I was running the Boston Marathon for Make-A-Wish. And so what came back to me, because we've been doing a lot of stuff for Make-A-Wish for so long, that these kids with these critical illnesses don't have a choice but to fight and get through what they're going through. I'm like, I'm just laid up a little bit. My legs immobilized. I can, let's deal with the pain. And now I have something to work towards. And immediately I went from victim to thriving, so to speak. At least mentally I was thriving. I wasn't exactly physically thriving, but I went to that place in my mind. And that was when, in what was working for me, I was writing that book on thriving in the storm. And I was like, man, God just laughed at me, unless I figure out a way to get out of this, because I'm writing a book on adversity and getting through it. And if I'm talking about victim survival and thriving, I better put my mouth where my money, I better put my money where my mouth is. And there you have it. That's how we did it. But honestly, no matter what I was doing at the time, I knew I knew for the greater good that we had to do it, because no matter what anyone said, you have nothing to prove. I needed to prove to these kids that, I committed to you, and excuse me, and we're gonna do this together. And so every adversity has some type of silver lining in it, right? Or a seed or equivalent of greater benefit, as Napoleon Hill said. And the silver lining for me was we raised so much awareness. We raised so much more money, like 10 times the amount of money that we committed to for Make-A-Wish, because I got a lot of coverage running around the track on crutches that brought in a lot of funds for Make-A-Wish, which was so cool. So that blessing was in disguise at the time when it happened, but it certainly paid off.
I mean, I know that was a massive personal setback for you, in the sense of having to overcome that injury and still show up to the start line and complete that marathon. Can you talk about some times in your life where you faced professional adversity and had to overcome adversity in the business world?
Yeah, last couple of years in the mortgage space, I mean, rates hit a 40-year high. Inventory was at I don't know, at least 3 decades low. And so that's a perfect storm, right? And so last year was the hardest year I've ever had in 27 years. And so what I did, and I knew that no matter what we did, we were just, I want to say we were surviving, because we were just trying to maintain, a level so we wouldn't go out of business, right? But in that spirit, I realized that no matter how much I prospected, the rates hurt us, and people weren't selling or buying at the time, because they weren't buying because there's no inventory. So I committed to a lot of different spiritual and mindset retreats last year. And I never in 27 years had done anything like that, because I was always so busy to do these things. And what happened was, I did some things with my mom personally, just her and I, that I've never done. She and I did some one-on-one vacations and some bonding and different things. I took her away. I did a spiritual retreat, a 1-week spiritual retreat, a meditation retreat with my sister, who's a holistic acupuncturist healer. And that was an incredible bonding experience. We went to see Joe Dispenza in Florida. And then my son, I had booked a trip to go see Wim Hof, because I know you do cold plunges. So I actually hung out with the pioneer himself, the Iceman, Wim Hof, and we went to Poland for his expedition. And that bonding with my son was was such an incredible an incredible time that I would have never done. So again, through my worst year ever, it ended up being one of my best years spiritually, and in a familiar bond that I wouldn't have probably had.
So talk about that, because for me, one of the biggest things that changed was practicing meditation, journaling. It sounds like, I know you do all those types of things and believe in it as well. The cold plunge, man, I was in the steam room cold plunge today. It changes you. So talk about that. Talk about your routine and the things that you do and practice to help you maintain where you're at.
Yeah, self-care is so important, and those are some pillars of my self-care. There anybody could have different areas of self-care, but the journaling, um, the meditation, the scripture reading spiritually, and I'll cold plunge is definitely, it's a daily thing. Like I've been doing it 2.5 3 years religiously. A daily cold plunge. I don't care what the temperature is. We'll go cold plunge. I'll go cold plunge every single day. Usually after my workout. I'll journal, and the journaling comes right after, my either a run or my workout, because I get incredible ideas, that hit of dopamine, that hit of uh, euphoria that you get. I'm not sure if you get that, Chris, but some best ideas and solutions to my worst problems came after a long run, because of the clarity that comes in. And that's why I got addicted to the run or to the endurance stuff, is because there's so much time you have with yourself that you're able to process so many things that you may not have had the answers to. So those things, and what that does, that routine, that helps build your fortress for the day ahead. So now if somebody cuts you off in traffic, you're not going to be as quick to road rage as if you just rolled out of bed, you're running late, and you're upset about what's going on in your life, and you're just not in a good place, and you're in that victim mindset, and someone cuts you off. That road rage you may have. But if you do all these things every single day, someone cuts you off, you're just like, you know what, that guy or gal must be in a hurry. They must be having a bad day. I don't know what's going on. So you're able to handle some of the life stresses so much better, it's so much easier when you're able to build that foundation for yourself day after day. Like, you have to pay that rent every single day with that routine, but that self-care, that'll get you to where you want to go.
Yeah, no, I believe it. It's what's changed for me. I do want to talk about your book. I know you wrote the book Thriving in the Storm, and you discussed the 9 principles for overcoming adversity. So talk a little bit about, writing this book, the decision to write the book, and the book writing process for you. And then obviously, the lessons that you hope people learn from your book.
I decided to write it initially it came to me, what I told you in 2019, when I ran my marathon, and I was like, you know what, this Ironman thing, like, I'm so intrigued by this, because this feels like it's not doable. It's almost impossible. And when you look up Ironman's motto, it is anything is possible. So I clung to that, and it really was fitting. And so I decided to train in 6 months for a full Ironman with no bike and not swimming in 30 years. And so, the anxiety, the depression, and when I want to go back to what I said earlier, is the only reason when the anxiety overtook me in the pool, the first 2 laps, when I decided to do this the first day, I was sitting on the edge of the pool. I was like, what did I do? Why did I even say I would do this stupid thing, this Ironman? Like, this is impossible. I'm not even training right. I don't have anyone really coaching me right. And what I said was, I told my kids I was going to do this. So I got permission, and I declared to my kids that I was going to do this. So I was like, I am getting back in this pool, no matter how painful, how dark, how ugly, and how uncomfortable I feel. So I wrote that book because I wanted everybody to know, like, I was never the most gifted athlete, the smartest, the strongest, but I did have mental toughness, and I did have a great work ethic. And so, what my weaknesses are or were, I made up with my strengths. And I think a lot of us worry about our weaknesses so much that we avoid our strengths, and we don't use our strengths for what can help us get through things. And so I wanted it to be for you're capable of way more than you ever thought possible, and keep pushing yourself and keep testing limits and breaking through barriers. And then the second part of that was, the victim, the three levels of mindset, and that's the victim mindset, the survival mindset. And we're so conditioned to be in survival mode that if you walk down the street and ask, you ask 10 people, half of them will say, how are you today? They'll say, surviving. Like, we're conditioned to survive only. Why not, when we have these good feelings, why not try to bring those up the level and thrive and live that thriving mindset life? Because it's so much nicer up there, as much as we possibly can. Of course, we're human, and we're going to be brought down at times, and we'll have to deal with it and go through the process of those feelings and emotions to get back up there. But let's not stay at that level. Let's push, push through and reach for the stars and work on that thriving mindset. So that's kind of how the book came. You're capable of way more than you ever thought possible. We all are. And to try to hang in that thriving mindset as quickly as possible. And when adversity hits, get through it as fast as you can. Again, there's a process, and you have to feel the feelings. Don't skip over the feelings. And then, a very important piece is, kind of making peace with your past. And we go through life, and, I go to a lot of seminars, and, you get these talks about, goal setting, and everybody wants to give you these goals moving forward and into next year. In 2025, you're going to start seeing all this stuff and finish the year strong. Like, goal set, goal set, goal set, goal set. And if you sit back and think about it, you'd be like, I've set the same goals for the last 10 years. I've set the same goals for the last 15 years. I've not hit it. I've not come close to it. What we don't teach in these workshops, what we don't teach in these seminars is, hold on, wait a second, you didn't do that, and you haven't done that these last X amount of years. The rah-rah speech is going to get you motivated, inspired, but you're not going to be able to commit, because here's the problem. The number one problem, something has been holding you back all this time. You have to figure out what has been holding you back and go through that process. Uncover that. That may be therapeutic. That may be journaling. That may be some self-reflection. But we have to make peace with what was behind us, so we don't try to pull it ahead, because this is going to drag us back. What I realized was, I needed to forgive a lot of people in my life, and that hurt me badly, and that tried to bring me down and led me to think that I wasn't worthy, led me to think that I was never good enough, that I was never got amount to anything. Like, I had to make peace with my past, so that didn't hold me back. And once I was able to do that, the next part of that process, and again, we're talking about these thriving emotions, was to forgive myself for holding on to that and blaming myself, and forgive others where I felt like, if I'm gonna let go of this victim mentality, I need true forgiveness. Yes. And everyone's gonna say, well, it's easy for you to say. You don't know what I went through. No, I don't know what anyone has gone through other than what I've gone through, but I know this process works if you really put the work in. Because when you hold on to resentment and revenge and hostility and all this other stuff, you are only hurting yourself. Think about those feelings and how much that physiologically takes over your body. And that's why we get sick. We're holding on to these feelings. Let it go. You're only helping yourself. And if you can forgive, and then, take it a step further, if you can send blessings to those that have hurt you. Now, I know we're talking, probably years and years and years and years of getting through some stuff, but maybe we send some blessings out there into the universe for whatever reason. You just help yourself, and you're able to deal with things much better, because you're not carrying that burden. You're not carrying that baggage that you have behind you. So you make peace with that past. Let it go. Now you want to go do the Ironman. You want to go hit that sales goal. Now you want to go for that promotion. You know what? That stuff that's been holding you back all these years where you couldn't hit it, now you can. Go for it. Let it go.
Along those lines of letting it go, what I want to ask you
Yeah,
is
he's
because I
good.
know for me, I felt like I was, kind of stuck, right? I didn't know how to kind of break through. I didn't know how to go to another level. I, was overwhelmed with the challenge that I had in life. I was married and 3 kids. I was trying to run a business, just kind of overwhelmed by it all. So what is that piece of advice that you give someone who feels stuck, who is overwhelmed by life's challenges?
Yeah, if you're truly stuck, just try to uncover where you are stuck. Go through that process. One of the things that also helps is try to help if you can't get yourself unstuck and you're ready, you're turning to self-medicating and you're turning to some bad habits and you're turning some things. Try helping someone somewhere else where they are. Like help a friend, help a loved one, help somebody somewhere else. Because when you take those feelings off yourself and you go help somebody else and see how good they feel, that becomes contagious, and it will transfer over to you a little bit and hopefully enough to get you unstuck. And that's a process that can work if you kind of put yourself, you say, what, I keep trying, I'm trying, I can't get out of it. I'm gonna go help someone else where they are. The other thing is, you know, take on take on something else, a hobby, an activity. Maybe, what, I'm so stuck right now. I need to give up my habits, or I need to stop doing certain things. Take on a new hobby where it could be, what, I'm going to start running. I'm going to start walking. I'm going to start hiking. I'm going to start, you know, doing some things for me, so I can become unstuck. And so now you take that focus on where you were just down and out, and just putting your attention somewhere good.
Yeah, one thing for me that kind of I had to realize is along life, every time I kind of felt stuck or couldn't get through, it was always like, let's make a change. But instead of making one change, I wanted to change everything, right? I wanted to give up alcohol. I wanted to get in shape and lose weight and eat better. And, all those things. I wanted to do it all, and I needed to do it all at once. So one thing I wanted to ask you is, what's that one small step that someone can start thriving no matter their current circumstances? And, what's the one thing that they could take on that could be so transformative for them?
I think movement, moving in the right direction. So maybe if it's one thing you need to start doing, it has to, incorporate some action. So, if it's giving up alcohol, what are you going to replace? I call it habit swapping. What can you replace a bad a bad habit with? Okay, I'm going to give up the drinking. I'm going to take everything off the shelf and then out of the pantry, out of my liquor cabinet. I'm going to take everything out, but I'm going to replace it with, I'm going to start running every morning because I'm going to feel better. Or I'm going to start walking every morning because I'm going to feel better. Habit swap that out. I think if you take the habit that you want to eliminate and put some type of movement into it, it's just going to set yourself up to where you want to go.
One thing I want to ask you, the last thing is something I never really thought about, and you talked about it earlier, your why, your purpose, but also starting to think about, the legacy that you hope to leave. So what is that legacy that you hope to leave through your personal and professional journey?
I'll go back to a saying that my grandfather always said to me: leave something, uh, put something back better than you found it. And so, I grew up, and I learned, I was taught that if you gave of yourself, that's your time, or you gave financially and monetarily, you were going to be out that time, you were going to be out that money, you were going to be out, whatever you gave. That is so far from the truth. Of course, because when you give, you get, not to look to get, but you get back so much more. I call it spiritual nutrition. It can feed you, it can lift you up, it can bring you to greater heights in your business, your career, your relationships, financially. Like everything, tithing. We go back to the biblical, tithing, giving a portion of, giving 10% of your income back to the church, or to, I call it, that feeds you your spiritual nutrition. And I think when we do that, we can, sky's the limit for accomplishing what you ever want to do. So when I started to learn to give, I was starting to scratch the surface of success. And once I started giving back and being present with the community, my life changed for the better. But the most important part of that is, I just want to model that for my kids. I want my kids to do those things, and they have. They're, my kids as teenagers, did some mission trips, to help some folks, and they've supported my fundraisers, and they've given their own funds, and they've organized some of their own events, which is so cool. Because when I was their age, I didn't figure this out till I was 28 years old to give back. I was taught if you gave $1, you were out $1. I know now if I give $1, I'm going to get $10 back somehow, some way, in another form that's going to lift me up anyway. And never ever look with expectation. Give without expectation.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
I can't think of a better way to end than that. Bill, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you giving back here with your time to share your story, your lessons with the listeners here for First Light. So again, thank you so much for your time and your generosity and sharing your story. Thank you, Bill, for sharing your incredible journey and the powerful lessons you've learned along the way. Your ability to turn adversity into high performance and your commitment to helping others thrive is truly inspiring. For our listeners, if today's conversation resonated with you, be sure to check out Bill's book, Thriving in the Store, for more insight and practical strategies. As always, keep shining your light.